Good morning. My name is Michelle Sevilla and I'm with Assemblymember Steve Bennett's office. Today is September 25th and I am the lucky staff member who gets to tour the Wallis Annenberg Wildlife Crossing. Unfortunately, the Assemblymember couldn't make it today. I'm driving through Thousand Oaks right now, Newbury Park area, and I'm about to land in the destination meeting spot in about 12 minutes.
Post-production Michelle here. Permits are required to film this area, so we're taking you on a sonic journey to visit the Annenberg Wildlife Crossing.
Hi, Lauren. Great to meet you.
Great to meet you too.
My name is Lauren Gill. I'm the California Deputy Director for the National Wildlife Federation, working on the Save LA Cougars campaign, which is the campaign to build the world's largest wildlife crossing here, the Annenberg Wildlife Crossing here in Liberty Canyon.
We met at the start of a publicly accessible trail at 27571 Agoura Road. Owned and managed by the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, this spot offers a great view of the bridge and its construction.
In another month or two, there will be a full road closure because they're actually building a structure directly over Agoura Road. What we'll do is start here, talk a little bit, then we'll go up the trail a ways. Once we get just above the canopy of these heritage oaks here, we'll have a really good view of the construction itself, and we can talk about what we're looking at and what's going to come next and so on. So the reason that we're here, because the first thing you notice is how challenging this site is and how large this crossing is going to be. When this section of the 101 freeway went through here, and 60 years ago when it was expanded, it provided safe passage for Californians and their cars to go north, south, and east, west in California. But it had the unintended consequence of making all of the Santa Monica Mountains an island of habitat. Literally all of the Santa Monica Mountains is completely cut off from the beginning of the range down in Oxnard, Camarillo, all the way to Los Angeles.
In Lauren's words, the planners were not going out of their way to make this the largest crossing in the world. Rather, the project's unique geographic setting required that they build the crossing further into the surrounding landscape to successfully facilitate safe migration between the north and south sides.
We can't simply get the animals across the freeway and then drop them down and say, we did our best, guys. I hope you make it across. So we have to get them all the way to safety, which is why what we're seeing here is the beginnings of the second structure. So you can see the superstructure over the 101, but what's happening right now is the beginnings of building the second structure that will take the crossing all the way over Agoura Road so the animals don't have to play dodge them there. This area was identified a long time ago by people who are visionary heroes like Senator Fran Pavley,
Yes.
and Rory Skay and Paul Edelman and Joe Edmiston began working to make sure that this vital corridor remained open and publicly protected open space.
Very forward thinking.
Very forward thinking.
Together, these leaders and many more unnamed supporters banded together to weave parcels of land north and south of the 101 freeway needed to enhance wildlife connectivity. Unfortunately, the impacts of this geographic and genetic isolation have already taken their toll by the time this crossing broke ground.
The National Park Service research biologists, wildlife biologists have been doing research in this area for almost 30 years now. You know, as the umbrella species, as go the mountain lions, so goes the rest of the ecosystem. They started to notice the impacts of dramatically lower genetic diversity. That's why the wildlife biologists said, this is really an emergency. If we were not to do anything, the population of lions that lives in the Santa Monica Mountains is in what they refer to as an extinction vortex, which is just as bad as it sounds. It means that we will lose this population of lions within 15 to 50 years.
Individuals and local agencies, namely the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy and the Mountains Recreation and Conservation Authority, worked together to secure the land and the money needed to build the crossing. Caltrans, California's Department of Transportation, was very clear that, while they were supportive of the project, the agency did not have the budget to contribute.
they said, this is what we have for you. There are no transportation dollars in the budget for any of this. We'll build it if you like, but you must raise the money, which is why the Save LA Cougars campaign of the National Wildlife Federation is the lead organization on this whole thing.
Construction of the crossing is obviously tricky. The U.S. Department of Transportation in 2019 estimated on average 315,000 cars use the route every day. It was necessary then for the planners to schedule work overnight where they could. Lauren explained that parts of the bridge are constructed like Lego blocks, pre-made off-site, trucked in when ready, and carefully placed with a crane and guiding hands.
Normally, a structure like this, you would just pour layers of a concrete deck on the top. But doing that would require closing the entire freeway, which was, absolutely a no-go. When that first girder was flown into place, happened about 3:30 in the morning. And what was so moving to me is that here's this crane operator's got to place this giant thing, precisely where it needs to go. It is enormously heavy. It's got this web of rebar on either side that is going to interweave with the matching rebar and the structure itself where it's going to sit. And there is a human being on either side of this massive thing guiding the girder those last few millimeters into place. A person who looks so tiny, So it was really, really moving to see that happen. And once all those girders were placed, people realized, oh. And so we got all these joyful messages, I drove under the bridge, or I'm going to drive under the bridge when I go pick up my kids this afternoon. People understood finally that, yes, this is a bridge we're building. Concrete was flowed across the entire thing. So now the vertical elements, the horizontal elements, all of the joints and interstices are filled. And now finally this structure is not pieces, but is one solid unit.
The planners not only needed to physically get the wildlife to safety, but they wanted to create conditions conducive to having as many animals use this crossing as possible. Thus, the crossing has design elements like sound barrier walls and no artificial lighting to signal to the animals that this is a safe pathway to move across.
What signals safety to animals is darkness and quiet. All of the earthwork and fencing that will connect everything up. So right now we're looking at that giant bridge abutment wall, and notice that the color of that concrete is darker than what you're used to. That is part of the light mitigation effort. That is a specially mixed concrete that cuts down the reflectivity of car headlights. Because again, darkness and quiet signal safety to the animals. So every aspect of this has been thoughtfully designed to make the conditions most welcoming to the animals.
No detail was overlooked, down to the mix of the concrete. That's spectacular.
That is right. P22, the most famous mountain lion in the world, born in the western Santa Monica Mountains, Dr. Travis Longcore theorizes that the reason P22 found himself in Griffith Park is that he followed the quietest, darkest path he could.
P22, or Puma 22, is the son of P1, the first adult male mountain lion that National Park Service wildlife biologists studied. P22 famously traversed both the US 101 and the US 405 and ended up in Griffith Park. The second largest cat in North America after the jaguar, mountain lions are solitary, elusive, and territorial. It's important to note that adult male mountain lions often have around 100 square miles of territory, while adult females may cover around 60 to 80 square miles.
P22 was a very charming individual. P1 was a surly son of a gun. When they began studying P1, he was using the entirety of the Santa Monica Mountains as his territory. All mine, which might indicate why P22 felt a special motivation to get out of Dodge when it was his turn to go and find his own territory. Having completed that extraordinary journey and found himself in Griffith Park where 10 million people each year recreate, and no one saw him. He did not bother anyone. He lived there successfully for 10 years in the smallest recorded territory size for an adult mountain lion ever. It's 8 square miles. And of course, most of it he couldn't use because there were so many people around. So he stuck to the more remote, wilder parts of the park. But having found himself there, you can imagine, sort of looking over his shoulder and saying, well, I'm not going back. I guess I'm going to stay here. And where he was, he did not have any other male mountain lions to fight him for that territory. And there were plenty of mule deer, which, if you ask 5 mountain lions, what is your favorite food? All 5 will say mule deer. So he had really no competition. He had plentiful source of food, and he made a go of it, which made him the most famous mountain lion in the world. And so, we're doing this work in his honor. It won't help him, but it will help his kin. Mountain lion kittens, when it's their turn to disperse out of the Santa Monicas to get to the plentiful territory for mountain lions to the north of us, will have a safe passage.
If you're close to Agoura Hills, you can drive under the crossing or take a walk up the public trail to see the bridge up close. Otherwise, you can go online to see the construction happen in real time through the webcams currently installed atop neighboring hills. We'll link the webpage to the live camera feeds in the notes. Looking at one of the cameras right now, I can see young plants already in the ground along with rocks piled into raised formations to provide varied habitat for critters of all types and sizes.
Very, very end of March of this year, the first natural elements were added to the crossing. And there's some areas of boulders because creatures like western fence lizards like to exist in places like that. Right now there is a cover crop really just designed to signal to the soil to get it ready for the native plants that are coming. There are right now 5,000 very robust native plants that are scheduled to go on top of the crossing to build that habitat. Our native plant project nursery that was set up, it is also on MRCA land specifically for this project. Well over 1 million seeds. All of the seeds were gathered within a 5-mile radius of this spot right here because it's very important that these plants not just be California plants, not just Southern California plants, but plants that are indigenous to this specific part of the ecosystem. Next month, they will get established while the rest of the construction is taking place, so that by the time everything is connected up, which will give animals actual access to the top of the crossing, that habitat will be completely established.
It is really a game of concurrent timelines.
Yes, so there will be about 1 acre of native habitat directly on top of the crossing. MRCA, whose land we're standing on, will assume the stewardship of that habitat. What we're looking at here, as we came up the trail, you saw all these relatively young oaks and other native plants. There's some of our resident deer, sages and other native plants. So this is part of restoration that MRCA has been doing now for the last 3 or so years. The most popular question that we get here is, oh, there we go. That's the mom and her 2 fawns. People ask, how will the animals find the crossing? That's our most popular question. We love to hear it. And the answer is, they are here and they are waiting. And they will use the crossing as soon as it's ready for them.
The crossing is already proving to be helpful for local wildlife. On-site construction crew members and scientists have already observed neighboring wildlife utilize the bridge, even in its incomplete state.
Last spring, after the first set of girders were in place and there was actually a partial roof over the bridge, Dr. Travis Longcore was over on the north side with some of his UCLA students, and they were doing light monitoring. It was nighttime, and they noted a barn owl circling above them, circled 2 times, then 3 times, and then flew directly over the portion of the crossing that had a lid on it with those girders. One of the contractors who I spoke to not too long ago said, that was not a one-off. What Dr. Longcore witnessed with his students, he said, I have been working nights on this project, and I can tell you that we see barn owls crossing over that safe, dark path very often. So there's 1 acre of habitat that we're building up top, but the entire project site is 13 acres on this side and the other side. And this entire corridor, of course, is going to be restored so that it remains a vital corridor for the animals to use.
Since the crossing is reaching into the further hills of the area, part of the project includes restoration. The hills nearby were historically used as working ranchlands and were damaged by the 2018 Woolsey fire, paving the way for invasive species like black mustard to become established. Some of the funds for this restoration work are coming from the voter-approved Prop 4 Climate Bond of 2024 to remove invasive species to allow native, fire-resilient species to thrive again.
And so all of what we're looking at here existed there, but the cattle ate it up over time. And then this invasive stuff came in, and all of that has got to be restored. And once the native stuff is established, it easily outcompetes all the weeds and the invasives. But it's got to get that establishment, and it needs a little help to do that. There's some oaks that have been planted and some Southern California black walnut trees, which are indigenous to this particular area. To get these trees established, crews were out here daily hand watering. Some of the restoration work will wait until all of that construction activity and excavation is finished, and then planting will take place over there as well. All the activity that's in front of us now is part of phase 2, which is the final phase of construction. So we are working toward a completion date end of next year, 2026, with a ribbon cutting and the opening of this crossing. Now beyond that date, as I said, the work will continue, and some of the restoration efforts that are on the flanks and the larger project area will need volunteer help.
You can go to their website, 101wildlifecrossing.org, and register for their email newsletter to get notices on future opportunities to get involved. The planners are trying to balance meeting the needs of local wildlife and satiating the curious public, but neighboring human residents made it clear. This is for the wildlife.
The project site is going to be protected. It will not be open to human traffic. This trail, of course, is a publicly accessible trail, so anybody can come here and get the view that we're looking at. Anybody can look at exactly what's happening at the construction site and even right on top of the wildlife crossing by accessing our webcam, which is there 24/7. We talked about the cameras that will go up top for monitoring once the project is complete. And the National Park Service wildlife biologists will share images of the animals that are using the crossing, so the public will get to participate in that way. We hope that this trail goes up top where the camera is and then continues on, but it's very steep. So MRCA has plans ultimately to reconfigure this trail to make it a little bit more accessible. And then we are hoping to put a viewing platform up top of the hill with interpretive signage. We may have a docent posted up there to be able to talk with people directly and answer their questions, and the equivalent on the north side, which is not quite as severe a slope and would be more accessible to folks. Another viewing platform where you get a different kind of view, and again, an opportunity to see what's happening without necessarily needing to set foot on the crossing. We really want people to feel a sense of ownership and pride about this project, and we want to make it accessible for people to satisfy their curiosity and get a good look and find out how it's working and all of that. So we're looking at multiple ways for people to do that.
Hearing all of that and the sheer amount of human labor it sounded like there was just to gather thousands of seeds to create the beautiful ecosystem that'll soon grow on top of this actually makes me emotional, as well as the involvement of the Native community to helping this. There's just more and more things to love about this project.
It is a project of hope, and it is a project of extraordinary collaboration. You can imagine with a project this size that there are challenges every day and have been for years. But the project partners have an extraordinary amount of trust built up and respect, and work together to push this mission forward. We're proving every day that large agencies can work directly with citizens and residents and supporters around the world to recognize an opportunity to fix something. and to work together to make it happen. I call this the world's most hopeful construction site.